What's the matter, miss? Too simple to understand what real math looks like. Dr. Rowe sneered, tapping the chalkboard like a hammer striking stone. The lecture hall burst into soft laughter, all eyes locking on the woman sitting in the back, the one in plain jeans, clutching a worn notebook. Elena swallowed hard, her heart pounding in her chest. She rose slowly, stepped toward the board, and that's when the room fell silent. Because the equation wasn't his. It was hers. She wrote the book he was teaching from. And what happened next left the entire university speechless. Welcome to Dignity Tales. Let's uncover what really happened. Elena sat at the back of the lecture hall, heart pounding against her ribs like a warning drum. The stale scent of chalk dust and old textbooks clung to the air, carving a narrow tunnel of light around Dr. Rowe's towering figure at the podium. His words cut through the room. This equation is beyond you. You're invisible, just another face in the crowd. A cold fire kindled in her chest. She gripped her worn notebook, pages scribbled with dreams and midnight calculations. Invisible ink, she thought, recalling the title she'd given her first self-published guide. Nobody ever noticed her notes. They were hidden beneath layers of disdain. The mask she wore, simple jeans, a plain t-shirt, felt heavier today. Every student's eyes darted to her with sly curiosity, as if she were a puzzle they didn't bother to solve. Dr. Rowe smirked. You can't even fill in step 1. Memo to yourself. Fire burns brightest when you fuel it. His voice dripped with contempt. Elena's fingers tingled, chalk-pressed. She wanted to stand, to tear off her mask and reveal the author they all admired online. But fear shackled her feet. A collective silence settled, and Elena felt the world narrow to Rowe's mocking gaze. Then deep inside, something shifted, a spark in invisible ink flaring to life. She exhaled, steadying the storm in her veins. There would be a reckoning, and that's when snapped. Comment, "This was me," if you've ever felt invisible. If you've carried this kind of fire, hit subscribe. Thought for a couple of seconds. The attic smelled of faded paper and lantern smoke as Elena rifled through a battered box. Her fingers paused over a folded letter, a child's scrawl promising a book that would change everything. It was her mother's handwriting, written decades ago after one of her own publishing rejections. The memory hit Elena like cold rain. Her mother, cheeks flushed with hope, tapping away by candlelight, whispering, "One day, someone will read these words." Elena closed her eyes. The echo of that hope still throbbed in her chest, mingling with the ache of years spent invisible. Masked by practicality, she'd hidden her own ambition behind simple clothes and quieter dreams. Fire flickered behind her eyelids, an ember passed down through generations, waiting to ignite. She traced the margins of the letter, where her mother had sketched formulas in invisible ink, believing that beauty could emerge even from the unseen. Elena had inherited that belief and the same restless need to be heard. The attic plank creaked beneath her, as if urging her to step into the light. A thunderclap rolled outside, rattling the window. Elena pressed fingertips to her jaw, tasting the metallic tang of anticipation. Her mother's unfinished manuscript lay beside the letter, its spine cracked and promising. Elena's own guide, Foundations of Thought, had once felt equally fragile. But it had found readers, countless students praising insights that Dr. Rowe now taught as gospel. He thought she was just another student, invisible. A sudden gust flipped the pages, landing on her own name scrawled in pencil, Elena Hayes. Her heart thundered. Sometimes the loudest voice is the one no one hears. And that's when the attic door creaked open. Drop a fire if you've ever felt your past whispering in your present. Dust motes danced in the morning light as Elena scanned the university's online bookstore. There it was again, Foundations of Thought, a slim, unassuming volume she'd published under a pen name 7 years ago. Reviews glowed. A masterpiece of clarity, change how I see problems. Yet the author remained anonymous, a ghost in academia's grand hallways. Dr. Rowe had assigned her own words today, words he believed he had discovered in ivory tower journals. He lectured on her chapter about seeing the unseen, praising its elegance. Elena pressed her palms to the cool desktop, the smooth surface buzzing under her fingertips. The irony stung sharper than chalk to skin. She was the invisible author whose own brilliance was weaponized by the man who refused to recognize her face. Her pulse drummed a secret rhythm as she opened the PDF on her tablet. The preface, a confession of self-doubt, a promise to those unheard, felt like a confession of identity. Knowledge left unspoken is like fire without flame, she'd written. She remembered typing that line, waiting for readers to feel the spark. Now she felt the flicker ignite beneath her ribs. A notification pinged, an email from a student praising Rose's original argument. Elena exhaled, the room constricting around her chest. Invisible author. The label hummed in her mind like a question she couldn't ignore. Every corridor echoed with laughter because she was nothing more than the girl in the back row. But tonight, she thought, under that attic lamp, she would be more. She closed the tabs, folding her fingers as if in prayer. Outside, the campus bell tolled 5 o'clock. Time's up. And that's when her tablet screen glowed with a new message. Midnight meeting. Dr. Rowe's office. We need to talk. Comment. I see you. If you've ever watched your own words used without credit. The lecture hall buzzed with restless energy as Dr. Rowe's gaze landed on Elena. He tapped the chalkboard, leaving a circle of white dust swirling in the air. Since we love surprises, he drawled, you'll solve this on the board. The equation sprawled across the slate, symbols twisting like barbed wire. A hush swallowed the room. Elena's heart hammered, each beat echoing in her ears. The chalk felt heavy in her hand, its rough edge biting into her palm. Beneath the bright lights, every eye was on her, some curious, most amused. She stepped forward, skirt whispering against the floor. Thoughts tumbled. What if I fail? What if he's right? Her fingers hovered over the first symbol. Her mind raced through that chapter in Foundations of Thought. The method was there, but uncertainty coiled in her stomach. The wall of Rose's smug satisfaction loomed behind her. She drew a shaky line, then paused, breath catching like smoke in her throat. Rose's smirk deepened. Come on, dear author, he taunted, though he didn't know he was mocking her. Show us the magic you wrote about. Laughter rippled. Elena's cheeks burned, chalk dust settling on her jeans like war paint. She closed her eyes, drawing a silent mantra. Fire, mask, unseen. Fire. The memory of her mother's promise pulsed through her veins. Words left unseen could still ignite change. She steadied her grip, pressed chalk to slate, and wrote the first transformation. A spark, no, a blaze, erupted within her. The room's temperature seemed to shift. The air thickened with tension. Other students leaned forward, breath held. Her handwriting steadied, symbols aligning in a pattern she recognized. Her pattern. Rose's confident sneer faltered. Elena felt the chalk hum in her hand, as if alive. Each step unveiled more of the solution until, with a final stroke, she circled the answer. Silence. The chalkboard glowed with her handwriting. The invisible author revealed, equation conquered. And that's when Rose's eyes widened, the mask slipping. Drop a fire if you've ever turned your fear into your fiercest power. Her pulse thrummed as she stepped back, chalk dust curling around her fingers like a victory banner. Dr. Rowe's lips parted, shocked into silence. His mask of superiority cracked, revealing something raw, confusion, maybe even fear. Elena felt an unfamiliar warmth flood her cheeks. Pride. Rows of students stared, eyes wide. Some blinked, unable to reconcile the timid girl they knew with the confident mind that just conquered his impossible challenge. Elena's own mask was slipping, too. Years of hiding her talent behind quiet clothes and lower-volume dreams began to peel away. She traced the arcs of her solution with a fingertip, the rough grooves still sharp against her skin. The scent of chalk mixed with adrenaline in the air, creating an intoxicating tang. Dr. Rowe cleared his throat, voice unsteady. Extraordinary, he whispered. Miss Hayes, how did you? Her heartbeat hammered a triumphant rhythm. She met his gaze without flinching. "You taught me the theory," she said softly, "but I wrote the proof." The words hung heavy, like smoke from a candle extinguished too late. A ripple of murmurs spread across the room. "She wrote that book?" "No way." Elena caught Daniel's eye. He nodded, awe shining in his expression. Masks were falling everywhere. In that moment, Elena realized the mask she had worn for safety was no longer necessary. She didn't need anonymity to be heard. Her mother's echoes, the attic's dusty promise, all led here, the truth blazing clear. Dr. Rose straightened, swallowing his pride. He lifted his chalk, hesitated, then wrote 2 words beside her final line: "Well done." The applause that followed was modest but real. And that's when Elena felt it, the sweet release of becoming visible. Comment, "I see you," if you've ever dropped your mask and stood in your power. Elena sat on her small dorm room bed, the whiteboard propped against the wall like a silent judge. She recapped every step she'd taken in class, each transformation, each alignment of variables. With a fresh marker in hand, she attempted to reconstruct her board solution from memory. The marker squeaked, the ink gliding unevenly across the glossy surface. Her pulse fluttered as she neared the trickiest step, isolating the hidden constant. She paused, marker hovering midair. The constant refused to reveal itself. Her mind swirled, once confident patterns slipping like sand through her fingers. Frustration knotted in her chest. How had she done it in front of Dr. Rose's eyes? The memory felt distant, as if she'd dreamed the entire triumph. Her fingertips traced the faint lines on the board, ghost-like echoes of her victory. She tried again, this time shifting the constant earlier in the sequence. The marker hit a dead end. The solution collapsed into a tangled mess of crossed outlines. A low groan escaped her. Failure tasted bitter on her tongue, a cold weight settling in her gut. Outside, a thunderstorm rolled in, rain pattering the window pane like impatient fingers. Elena's shoulders slumped. Doubt crept forward. Maybe she'd only succeeded under the pressure of an audience. Without that glare of expectation, maybe her mind unraveled. She pressed her forehead to the board, breathing in the marker's acrid scent. The attic's echoes whispered in her mind, her mother's faith, her own invisible ink. Elena drew a deep breath and pivoted, turning the board toward the window. Lightning split the sky, stark white against bruised clouds. In that flash, a new thought struck. The constant wasn't hidden. It was in plain sight, woven into the equation's form. Elena spun back, jerked the marker across the board, and rewrote the sequence. Her hand trembled as the lines aligned. Step by step, the solution reemerged, this time solid, undeniable. She exhaled, chest heavy with relief. Outside, the storm broke, hail tapping the glass. Elena traced the final line, her heart quiet for the first time since the challenge began. And that's when she realized her mind didn't need an audience to ignite. Drop a fire if you've ever conquered doubt in the quiet. Elena stood by the rain-spattered window, the final equation gleaming on her whiteboard like embers in the dark. Each line felt scorched into her memory, proof that ink and courage could burn through doubt. She closed her eyes, recalling Dr. Rose's laughter, the mask of his superiority, and the hush that followed her victory. "Fire," she whispered, flames of change. The storm outside softened to a drizzle as resolve coalesced in her chest. No more hiding, no more invisible ink. Tonight, she would own every word she'd written, every lesson she'd taught herself. She grabbed her tablet, thumb hovering over the send button for her anonymous author account. Heart hammering, she typed a simple message: "I'll meet you at midnight. It's time you knew who I am." Her finger trembled above send, as if the screen itself resisted the truth. Elena pictured the classroom at dawn, Rose's surprised eyes, the students' shifting glances. She imagined the moment she stepped to the podium, not as a shy note-taker, but as the mind who wrote those notes. The thought set her pulse ablaze. Rain dripped from her hair as she opened her laptop and drafted a new email addressed to Dr. Rowe. "Check your inbox tonight." She hesitated, chest tight, then hit send. The screen blinked. Message delivered. No turning back now. A single bolt of lightning fractured the sky, illuminating her small dorm in stark white. Elena drew in a steadying breath, feeling the weight of every hidden aspiration lift from her shoulders. The attic whispers, her mother's hope, the invisible ink, all converged in this moment. She powered down the devices and stood in the hush, chest still thrumming. Outside, the final raindrops fell like punctuation on her resolve. Mask slipping, fire unwavering. And that's when the midnight chime echoed through the empty halls. Comment, I'm ready, if you've ever dared to claim your unseen flame. Professor Marlowe's office smelled of old books and peppermint tea. Elena slipped inside, the door clicking softly behind her. Marlowe, retired now but still revered, sat behind a mahogany desk cluttered with manuscripts. His silver hair caught the lamplight, and his knowing eyes held both warmth and challenge. You summoned me at midnight, he said, folding a letter in his hand. I got your message. Elena's journal lay open on the desk, pages marked by frantic annotations. I need guidance, she confessed, voice barely above a whisper. Marlowe leaned back, studying her. Courage alone won't carry you through what's coming, he said. You must temper fire with strategy. Show them the invisible framework that holds your ideas together. He pointed her whiteboard sketch. This step here, he tapped a margin, reveals your method, but it lacks context. You need a narrative, your story woven into the equations. Transform data into destiny. Elena's heart fluttered. She'd never thought of her work as story. How do I begin? Marlowe poured 2 cups of tea, handing one to her. The peppermint scent grounded her. Start with pain, he advised. Illuminate the wound that shaped your logic. Make them feel the sting before they marvel at the solution. He traced a line on her board. Here, a glimpse of sorrow hidden in every variable. She nodded, warmed by his belief. And the reckoning with Dr. Rowe? Reveal your name not as a stunt, but as a catalyst, he said. Challenge the system he embodies. Force him to confront what he's stolen, your voice. His tone softened. Remember, mentorship is a gift. You've earned it by showing up. A clock ticked behind them. Elena felt the weight of the moment, a confluence of past guidance and future boldness. Outside, the campus slept, unaware that tomorrow it would witness more than equations. She stood, resolve rekindled. Thank you, she said, voice steady. I'll tell my story. Marlowe offered a rare smile. Then let's write a chapter he can't ignore. And that's when Elena realized she had a secret weapon, wisdom older than her doubts. Elena arrived early, the lecture hall's hush wrapping around her like challenge. Her whiteboard stood ready, blank except for her motto, Fire Reveals Truth, scrawled at the corner. Chalk dust clung to her fingertips, each grain a promise. She inhaled, tasting its rough edge. Dr. Rowe entered, pausing as he noticed the board. Already rehearsing, he sneered, voice echoing. His eyes flicked to her motto, narrowing. Elena met his gaze, steady, no longer invisible. When the bell rang, she strode forward. The room's temperature shifted, tension simmered like a wound about to burst. Her first words were soft but unwavering. Today, we'll explore the unseen framework. Chalk met slate with a screech that sliced through murmurs. A spark, no ablaze, ignited inside her. Each stroke of chalk released a plume of white, like smoke from a struck match. She traced the equation's skeleton, narrating her journey, the attic's dusty promise, the midnight resolve, the guiding hand of her mentor. Every symbol she wrote took on meaning, each line a bridge between pain and purpose. The air thickened. Classmates leaned forward, senses anchored by her voice and the rhythmic tap of chalk. Dr. Rowe watched, lips pressed thin. Elena paused at the critical juncture where the hidden constant emerged. Her fingers hovered, chalk trembling. She inhaled sharply, the metallic taste of victory on her tongue. Then, with deliberate calm, she wrote the final step. The equation glowed under the lights, its truth unveiled. Silence exploded into applause. Chalk dust danced in the beams, like embers caught in dawn's breeze. Elena's heart thundered with release. Fire and chalk, yoked together. She straightened, chalk in hand, wearing confidence like armor. And that's when Dr. Rose stepped forward, hand outstretched. "You've set this hall ablaze. Well done, Elena." Comment, chalk, and fire. If you've ever transformed tension into triumph. The next morning's lecture crackled with electric expectation. Elena found her seat before the hall filled, chalk smudging her palm like a secret talisman. Dr. Rowe entered, nodding curtly. His eyes lingered on her with an unfamiliar wariness. He launched into the day's material, reciting theorems drawn directly from foundations of thought. Elena's chest tightened. He spoke with confidence, as if Pavlov's student, while she held the key he refused to acknowledge. When he reached the pivotal theorem, her theorem, he paused and met her gaze. "Miss Hayes," he announced, voice steady but edged, "please demonstrate the corollary on the board." The room fell silent. She rose, heart pounding, chalk in hand like a drawn sword. Elena approached the slate, every eye narrowing in anticipation. She drew the first lines with purpose, the chalk's hiss echoing the pulse in her ears. She moved through familiar steps. Only now, she infused each one with narrative. The attic's cradle of ideas, her mother's unspoken hope, the midnight fire. The audience leaned in, witnesses to a second strike. Halfway through, Rowe interrupted, chalk poised above his own board. "That's not quite the standard method," he said, stepping forward. The air thickened with tension. Elena swallowed the sting of his interruption and felt an ember flare within her. She turned, tracing his errant step in his own formula. "Actually," she said, voice clear, "it's precisely the standard when viewed through an invariant transformation." Her words landed like a hammer. Dr. Rowe's hand stilled midair. Students exchanged surprised glances as she corrected his oversight, reloading the theorem with newfound elegance. A hum of admiration swelled. Elena completed the proof, her final line underlined with conviction. The blackboard bore her script, not just solutions, but her story. Chalk dust settled, shimmering like embers cooling to ash. Silence held for a heartbeat before applause erupted. Even Rowe's stern mask couldn't hide a flicker of respect. Elena stepped back, chest alight, knowing this strike would resonate far beyond these walls. And that's when a classmate leaned over and whispered, "You just rewrote history." Elena's knock was soft against Dr. Rowe's office door. Inside, the late afternoon light slanted across framed degrees and accolades. Rowe sat behind his desk, a mountain of student papers half-graded before him. His posture was rigid, shoulders squared as though bracing for battle. "Sit," he said without looking up. The chair opposite him seemed miles away. Elena lowered herself into it, chalk dust still faintly on her jeans. She folded her hands, breathing through the tension that crackled like static. "Your demonstration today, impressive," Rowe finally said. His tone was measured, unfamiliar. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. "But I have questions." His eyes flicked to her notebook, opened to pages of her own derivations. "These aren't merely solutions. They're yours." "Explain." Elena's pulse thrummed. Here lay the crossroads of her hidden identity. She straightened. "They are mine," she said simply. "Every insight, every nuance." Rowe's eyebrow rose. He closed the notebook gently, as if closing a case file. "Then why remain anonymous? Why hide behind a pen name while I, and others, teach your work as if it were discovered in some obscure journal?" His gaze pinioned hers. A swell of resolve rose in Elena. "I feared judgment," she admitted. "I feared that without a mask, my words would be dismissed because of who I am or what I wear." The admission burned, but it rang true. Rowe was silent, absorbing her confession. The room seemed to shrink until the only sound was their breathing. Finally, he exhaled. "You gave us brilliance without expectation of credit," he said quietly. "But anonymity has its cost." He gestured to the papers. "You're meant to grade these assignments. You'll join the faculty meeting tomorrow and present your work openly. No mask, no pseudonym. Elena's chest tightened with relief and anticipation. "I'll do it," she said, voice sure. Beyond the door, the hallway's chatter seemed distant, a world waiting for her emergence. And that's when Roe offered a single nod of respect, the unspoken beginning of a new collaboration. The next morning, Elena walked the hallway with purpose, her notebook clutched like a compass. Students paused in clusters, heads turning, voices dropping to hushed tones. "Is she really the author?" someone whispered. "I heard Roe himself told her to teach," another added. The echo of their murmurs trailed behind her like a shadow. Lockers clanged as she passed. A circle of classmates gave her space, part reverence, part uncertainty. Daniel appeared at her side, offering a quiet smile. No words were needed. His presence was affirmation enough. Across the corridor, a trio of skeptical students exchanged glances. One tapped her phone screen rapidly, as if orchestrating a social media storm. Elena felt the tension ripple through the air. Expectation and doubt braided together. In a library, she spotted a bulletin board emblazoned with the upcoming faculty meeting notice. Her name was scrawled beneath, guest presenter, bold and undeniable. A thrill of adrenaline pulsed through her veins. She reached out, fingers grazing the paper. Chalk dust still clung to her fingertips, residue of her truth. A sudden cluster of laughter drifted from a nearby study room. Peeking inside, Elena saw two students reenacting Dr. Roe's previous sneer. She took a breath, recalling her mother's quiet strength, Marlowe's steady guidance, and the fire she carried. The laughter halted, eyes locking onto her silhouette in the doorway. Their grins flickered, uncertainty replacing mockery. She moved on, each step a testament to her resolve. The marble floors reflected her stride, steady, unmasked, visible. Whispers continued, but they no longer weighed her down. Instead, they hummed a new rhythm: curiosity, respect, and the promise of hearing the story behind the equations. And that's when the campus bell tolled, its resonance a call to claim her place in the light. Comment, "I'm watching," if you've ever felt the weight of curious eyes. Dr. Roe stood before the full auditorium, his voice amplified by the microphone. "To honor Elena Hayes' work, we're launching a campus-wide challenge," he announced, eyes sweeping the crowd. The equation that had stumped even graduate students was now marked in glowing neon on the screen behind him. Whoever solves this in 1 week will earn a teaching assistantship and co-author credit in next semester's textbook. A ripple of excitement and apprehension pulsed through the hall. Elena sat front and center, heart thrumming like a live wire. Her name was displayed in the program. Special presenter. She watched faces contort, some curious, others intimidated. The challenge was no mere contest. It was a gauntlet thrown at tradition itself. Roe gestured toward Elena. "Elena will mentor entrants who seek guidance." Surprise rippled through the audience. Whispers, "She's teaching now." She wrote the book. Elena straightened, chalk smudges on her palm. The podium felt like an altar of transformation. She stepped forward, voice clear. "This challenge isn't about proving worth. It's about exploring unseen paths." She clicked a remote, and her own technique appeared slide by slide, redacted to hints only. The auditorium dimmed. Only her silhouette and the glowing formulas remained. You'll discover that every problem holds a story. Mine begins with invisible ink, hidden truths, and a spark that set this equation ablaze. The crowd leaned in. Questions flooded in. What is the hidden constant? How do we approach the invariance? Elena answered patiently, her tone a blend of fire and empathy. She handed out tokens, small cards embossed with "Fire reveals truth." Carry these as reminders. Insight often lives in the margins. As students filed out, their chatter buzzed with newfound excitement. Even Dr. Roe lingered, observing with something like pride. Elena slipped backstage, adrenaline still blistering in her veins. The podium lights dimmed, but the arena of possibility shone brighter. And that's when a freshman grasped her arm, eyes wide. "I think I just felt my own spark." Drop a fire if you're ready to ignite your unseen potential. Elena's dorm room became a laboratory of ideas. Morning light filtered through strewn notebooks, sticky notes layered across her desk like a mosaic of thought. She cycled between her whiteboard, tablet, and dog-eared textbooks, each page a piece of her evolving puzzle. The soft click of her mouse punctuated the hum of concentration. She tracked her own process, mapping variables, color-coding proofs, and annotating margins with questions like what if and why here. A pot of herbal tea steamed beside her, its minty scent grounding restless thoughts. Outside, leaves rattled in an early autumn breeze, stirring the curtains and mirroring her own internal restlessness. Elena replayed recorded lectures, pausing at Rose's explanations, rewinding moments to catch nuances she'd missed. She compared them to her own notes, the margins of foundations of thought scrawled with alternative methods. Each comparison sharpened her insight, illuminating paths that diverged from standard approaches. At midday, she retreated to the campus quad, chalk in hand, sketching formulas on a sidewalk board near the fountain. Passers-by paused, some curious, others skeptical. She welcomed both, the fountain's steady churn a rhythmic backdrop. Rain threatened, droplets dotting her sketches like pearls before the storm washed them away, and she smiled at the impermanence of knowledge in motion. Back in her room, she convened virtual study groups, guiding peers through her hints without revealing the full solution. Their aha moments echoed through her headphones, each spark of understanding fueling her own fervor. Invisible framework, she reminded them gently, holds every proof together. Late night found her in the library's silent alcove, surrounded by towering shelves. A single lamp illuminated her determined face as she cross-referenced ancient texts on invariant theory. Her finger traced worn pages, connecting centuries-old insights to her modern equation. The musty scent of leather bindings lent gravity to her pursuit. Finally, she returned to her whiteboard, muscles tired but spirit ablaze. With each precise stroke, the solution crystallized, no longer fragmented steps, but a cohesive narrative. Chalk dust settled like stardust as she underlined the final theorem. And that's when she realized every drop of effort had tempered her resolve into something unbreakable. Comment, "This is my grind," if your dedication burns in the quiet hours. Elena stood at the front of the showcase hall, heart racing as her rival, Marcus Liu, presented his near-perfect solution. Marcus's calm voice carried across the room, precise, polished, and eerily familiar. The judges nodded, impressed. Marcus closed with a flourish. Applause rippled through the audience. For a moment, Elena's chest swelled with pride at seeing her methods honored. But when Marcus revealed his final derivation, a subtle misstep emerged. He'd applied the invariant transformation one step too early, skewing the constant roll. The judges murmured, eyebrows furrowing. Elena's breath caught. This was her opening. She stepped forward, voice steady. "Marcus, your method is elegant, but if you adjust the constant placement here, the proof realigns." She pointed to the chalkboard's edge. Gasps echoed as he retraced her fingertip, discovering her correction. The miscalculation wasn't devastating, but enough. Marcus's confident smile faltered. The head judge cleared his throat. "Ms. Hayes, would you present your complete solution?" Elena nodded, chalk dust still clinging to her palm. She redrew the sequence, this time bathing each step in narrative. The addict's dusty promise, the midnight resolve, the quiet mentorship. When she finished, the board bore her script, her story woven into every symbol. Judges compared her solution to the intended result. It was flawless. Applause thundered. Elena's chest heaved with relief and triumph. Marcus offered a reluctant nod, respect begrudgingly earned. Yet amidst the claps, Elena felt a hollow ache. The victory should have felt pure, but it carried a bitter edge. She needed to correct someone else's flaw rather than conjure a wholly independent triumph. The applause blurred as she grappled with mixed emotions, pride undercut by the realization that her greatest strength lay in fixing what others thought irreproachable. Outside, twilight settled, the hall's bright lights dimming. Elena stepped away from the board, the chalk's rough edge grounding her. She understood now that true conquest required forging a path, not just highlighting detours. The false victory flickered, teaching her that real brilliance demands originality, not just correction. And that's when she resolved. Tomorrow's proof would be wholly hers. Uncontested, undeniable. Comment onward, if you've ever turned mixed feelings into deeper resolve. Elena returned to the whiteboard before dawn, the campus cloaked in pre-sunlight hush. Her chalk skidded across the slate, laying out a brand new proof, one untainted by competition or correction. Each symbol pulsed with intention. The hidden constant fully integrated, the invariant transformation seamless. This was her calculus of truth. Her mind replayed every lesson. Her mother's invisible ink, Marlowe's guidance, even the bruising sting of that false victory. These threads wove into her approach, grounding abstract logic in lived experience. She paused at the midpoint, inhaling the chalk's dusty tang, and whispered no more half-steps. She adjusted the equation's parameters, revealing a deeper symmetry no one had noticed. The hall's silent corridors seemed to lean in, carrying the weight of her discovery. Elena underlined the final theorem and stepped back. This was the unassailable core of her intellect, raw, original, undeniable. At sunrise, students gathered once more. Dr. Rowe watched from the side, anticipation and pride flickering in his gaze. Elena stood before the board, steadier than ever. She began to speak, her voice resonant. Today, I present not just a solution, but a truth distilled through persistence. Chalk danced under her hand, each line a testament to her journey. Colleagues scribbled in notebooks, faces lighting as they grasped the elegance of her proof. When she finished, the board shimmered under the morning light. An equation transformed into a narrative of resolve. Silence held for a heartbeat. Then applause surged, sweeping the room like a rising tide. Elena's chest swelled with authentic triumph. This calculus was hers alone. No corrections, no borrowed sparks, pure, self-forged brilliance. Dr. Rowe stepped forward, voice steady. Elena Hayes has redefined our understanding. Her calculus of truth stands as a beacon of original thought. He paused, chalk dust falling like confetti. This is math at its most human. And that's when Elena realized the greatest equation wasn't on the board. It was the sum of every hidden struggle made visible. Drop a fire if you believe your truth deserves its own stage. The faculty meeting room buzzed with subdued excitement as professors and chairs assembled around a polished oak table. Elena stood at one end, chalk smudges still faint on her fingertips. Dr. Rowe cleared his throat, pushing aside a stack of policy documents. Elena, he began, voice formal yet warm. Your presentation has prompted us to reevaluate our curriculum. It's time we rewrite the rules. Heads turned. Elena's heart fluttered. This was bigger than any classroom. Rowe continued. Effective immediately, anonymous submissions will be welcome in advanced seminars. Ideas will be judged on merit, not pedigree. We'll integrate student-authored texts into required reading, starting with foundations of thought. A murmur of approval rippled through the room. Professor Lin, head of the graduate program, nodded thoughtfully. And we'll establish a pedagogy workshop, led by Ms. Hayes, focusing on narrative methods in technical subjects. Elena inhaled sharply. Her mentor's advice had evolved into institutional change. Dr. Rowe leaned forward, chalk dust on his jacket cuff. We're also introducing bias training for faculty, recognizing how assumptions can obscure talent. Elena remembered his skepticism, but now his words carried conviction. A dean piped up, what about public outreach? We should host community workshops, inviting non-traditional learners to campus. Elena's chest warmed. The corridors she once navigated invisibly would open to new voices, just as her mother's attic dreams had sparked her own. Paper rustled as policies were annotated and initialed. Elena found herself scribbling notes, each amendment a symbol of progress. The room's energy shifted from tradition-bound to possibility-charged. When the final motion passed, Dr. Rowe stood, extending a hand. "Thank you for leading us into a new era." His smile was genuine, devoid of past arrogance. Elena shook his hand, feeling the tangible weight of collective transformation. And that's when she realized, by rewriting the rules, she'd reshaped the equation of opportunity itself. Comment "Rewrite the rules" if you believe systems can change. Elena stood before the packed auditorium, the glow of smartphone screens flickering like stars in twilight. Faculty, students, and curious visitors leaned forward as Dr. Rowe stepped aside. "Now," he said, voice rich with anticipation, "the moment we've all been waiting for." He gestured to Elena with genuine respect. Elena inhaled, feeling the chalk dust's faint residue on her palm. She raised a hand and nodded to the projection screen behind her. With a tap, the slide changed, from equations to a simple title, Elena Hayes. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She paused, letting the tension crystallize. "By now, you know my work," she began, voice clear. "But you still don't know the author." A soft click brought up the cover of Foundations of Thought, the same slim volume everyone recognized, now bearing her name. Murmurs swelled. She stepped forward, heart racing with vulnerability. "I published this book anonymously 7 years ago," she confessed. "I feared judgment, that my voice would be dismissed because I didn't fit the image of a proper academic." The auditorium drew a collective breath. Elena's gaze swept the audience. Faces of admiration, surprise, even regret. "Today, I stand before you unmasked." She peeled off a protective glove she'd worn on one hand, one that still bore faint chalk streaks. "Just as ink revealed my equations, I reveal my identity." A student in the front row stood, applause starting like a single clap echoing off walls. Others joined in, swelling into a roar of acceptance. Elena's chest tightened with relief. She was seen. Dr. Rowe approached, holding the original pen name's contract and her signed affidavit. "Elena Hayes," he said, voice thick with emotion, "thank you for showing us that true scholarship embraces the whole person." He offered her the contract. She took it, her fingers brushing his in silent gratitude. And that's when the auditorium lights dimmed, focusing on Elena's face, unmasked, unashamed, undeniably hers. Drop a red heart if you believe every voice deserves its light. The applause still echoed when Elena stepped down from the podium, her heart still ablaze from the reveal. Faces blurred as she made her way through the crowd, some offering congratulations, others sheepish apologies. She paused before Dr. Rowe, whose eyes held a storm of regret and newfound respect. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice trembling. "I judged you before knowing you." His confession landed like hot coal in her chest, igniting both anger and compassion. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, tasting the metallic tang of betrayal and the softer notes of possibility. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the quad. Students gathered in clusters, their chatter a tapestry of admiration. Yet Elena's focus remained on Rowe. She inhaled, feeling the fire of her journey flicker into something gentler, a warmth that betrayed the sharp edge of triumph. "Fire burns brightest when it transforms," she said quietly, recalling her mother's words. "It can destroy, or it can illuminate." She met his gaze, seeing the vulnerability beneath his professional mask. "You taught me theory," she continued, "but I taught myself courage. We both have room to grow." Rowe nodded, relief surfacing. He extended his hand, an olive branch covered in chalk dust. Elena hesitated only a heartbeat before taking it. The chalk dust mingled between their palms, a symbol of hardened pride softened by forgiveness. Around them, students cheered as Elena's friends embraced her. Gratitude swelled in her chest, a contrast to the earlier ache. She realized that forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was fuel for her next transformation. Dr. Rowe smiled, uneasy yet genuine. "May I learn from you?" he asked. Elena returned his smile, the ember in her heart shifting into a steady flame. "Teach me," she replied simply, "and I'll teach you in return." And that's when the first sparks of a new partnership ignited. Fire tempered by forgiveness, ready to light the path ahead. Comment forgiven if you believe grace can fuel growth. Elena stood in the new teaching lab, rows of desks equipped with tablets and whiteboards gleaming under soft lights. Today, she wasn't a student or a hidden author. She was an architect of transformation. Her first class of mixed majors waited, some wary, others curious. She began with a simple question. What makes an idea invisible? Silence, then tentative hands rose. She guided them through an exercise from Foundations of Thought, watching as hesitant faces lit with comprehension. Chalk and digital ink danced under their fingertips, each student forging personal connections to abstract concepts. Dr. Rowe observed from the back, taking notes. His earlier pride had evolved into humility. He now viewed her not as a rival, but as a collaborator. Elena caught his eye and nodded. He returned it with a smile that spoke more than words. Midway through, she introduced a group challenge. Rewrite a classic proof through narrative metaphors. Students crafted stories of rivers finding paths, stars mapping constellations, seeds breaking soil. Laughter and animated discussion replaced the sterile, quiet Michaela, an engineering major, described her solution as a symphony of logic. Others nodded, amazed by new perspectives. At the end, Elena asked each student to share one insight about themselves. A timid sophomore admitted she'd always felt invisible in STEM until today. A pre-med undergrad confessed a newfound love for mathematical beauty. The lab's energy crackled with collective revelation, each transformation a spark feeding the next. After class, Dr. Rowe approached. "They're alive with ideas," he said, voice full of wonder. "You've changed more than curriculum." Elena smiled, feeling the ember of her own growth glowing brighter. Outside, sunlight warmed the courtyard. Students clutched their tablets, chatting about equations and metaphors as they strolled. Elena paused, breathing in the hum of possibility. She had journeyed from hidden author to visible mentor, and now she watched others transform before her eyes. And that's when she understood. True change isn't a solo breakthrough. It's a shared evolution, lighting countless paths at once. Drop a sparkles if you believe transformation ignites together. Elena returned to the chalkboard in the afternoon glow, erasing yesterday's proof to make way for something new. Beside her, Dr. Rowe hovered, anticipation flickering in his eyes. Today, they would craft a joint formula, one that blended her narrative approach with his classical rigor. She drew a bold header, new equation, E=F(I)(RC). He raised an eyebrow. "Explain," he prompted, voice warm. Elena Hayes's equation of engagement, she began, tracing each variable. I for invisible insights, R for relational context, C for creative narrative. Together, these transform abstract concepts into lived understanding, she explained, writing as she spoke. Invisible ink becomes visible when we relate ideas to personal stories. Context and creativity ignite comprehension. Rowe leaned in, chalk in hand. He sketched a classical sigma notation beneath her formula, the sum of individual variables across N learners. "We'll test this in our next module," he said. "Collect data on engagement and retention." Elena nodded, excitement humming in her veins. They invited a small group of students to collaborate. Clips of video lectures, narrative reflections, and quiz scores streamed onto the screen as Elena guided them through pilot studies. Each student's feedback, bright-eyed comments, laughter, scribbled insights, fed directly into Rowe's statistical models. The lab felt alive, a fusion of heart and calculation. By dusk, the board was a tapestry of graphs, stories, and equations unified. Elena tapped the final result, smiling as the class applauded the first iteration of their co-created method. Rowe stepped back, chalk dust kissing his jacket. "We've rewritten the equation of teaching," he said softly. Elena's chest swelled with shared triumph. The new equation wasn't just mathematics. It was a symbol of partnership, an algorithm for empathy. As the room emptied, she and Ro lingered, tracing the chalk lines side by side. And that's when they realized, together, they had discovered an equation not bound by numbers, but by human connection, an enduring formula for transformation. Comment, "We've got this," if you believe collaboration sparks innovation. Rows of desks were gone. In their place, clusters of plush chairs and low tables formed conversation circles beneath warm pendant lights. Elena watched as students filed in, their eyes widening at the space's transformation. Laptops and tablets sat ready, but so did sketchpads, colored markers, and a scattering of tactile models. Geometric sculptures, timelines built with string, and jars of colored sand. Dr. Rowe joined her, nodding toward a wall-sized whiteboard filled not with equations, but with sticky notes, ideas, personal goals, questions waiting to be explored. "It's like a studio," he murmured. Elena smiled. That was exactly the vision. Math as a living, breathing practice. She began with a prompt. How does your world shape your understanding of problems? A hush fell as students considered personal stories. A violinist described mathematical rhythms in music. A social work major mapped community networks with topology. They moved between circles, sharing experiences and mapping insights on shared devices. The buzz of collaboration replaced the old lecture silence. Elena circulated, pausing to ask incisive questions. What if variables were like characters in a story? In one corner, a team acted out an equation as a play, each person embodying a symbol. Laughter and discovery intertwined. At the center table, Dr. Rowe facilitated a mini-seminar on abstract algebra, but with a twist. Students wrote metaphors on cards. Groups are dance formations. One read, then challenged each other to expand these analogies. Elena watched as faces lit with recognition. Complex theorems became vivid narratives. Midway through, the door chimed and a curious freshman peeked in. Elena beckoned him forward. He hesitated, then joined a circle, his questions sparking fresh insights. No one judged his uncertainty. He fit seamlessly into the reimagined classroom. As the session ended, Elena projected student reflections. I finally see math as a living language. My voice matters to these formulas. I feel less invisible. Applause rose, unprompted, a testament to belonging. And that's when Elena realized this wasn't just a new room. It was a sanctuary where every mind could find its equation. Drop a seedling if you believe learning belongs to everyone. Elena rose before dawn, chest humming with anticipation. Today, she would visit the campus radio station. Her voice no longer hidden in print, but live on air. She carried her worn notebook, its pages now brimming with lived experience rather than invisible ink. The studio's glass window revealed a DJ adjusting levels, nodding as she knocked. "Go ahead," came the call. She stepped inside, heart steady. The microphone loomed like a portal. "Good morning," she began, voice clear. "This is Elena Hayes, author of Foundations of Thought. Today, I'm not just sharing equations. I'm sharing a journey from invisible ink to visible impact." As she spoke, her life unfolded in listeners' ears. The attic's dusty promise, the classroom challenge, the midnight resolve, the mentorship that reshaped her path. She wove metaphor and math, inviting callers to reflect on their own invisible strengths. A freshman phoned in, voice trembling. "I've never felt clever enough to call in, but your story, it gave me courage." Elena grinned, warmth flooding her. She guided callers through a mini exercise. Find a constant within your equation of self. What core truth anchors you? Voices shared stories of hidden talents, unspoken dreams, and newfound determination. Each caller's revelation echoed hers, creating a chorus of transformed identities. On the other side of the console, the DJ nodded, visibly moved. "Elena, you're changing lives," she said when the segment ended. Elena's fingers brushed the microphone, as if affirming a pact. The air in the studio felt charged. knowledge and empathy braided together. Walking back to her office, the campus awoke around her. Students waved. An old professor tipped his hat. Elena realized she no longer navigated as an outsider. Her identity had expanded from solitary author to community catalyst. The mask was gone, replaced by a presence that invited others in. And that's when she felt it. Every equation she'd ever written was now part of a larger sum, a transformed self multiplied by every life she'd touched. Comment, "This is me," if your identity has evolved beyond expectation. The campus courtyard glowed in sunset hues as Elena paused by the fountain, its water spiraling upward like a phoenix's plume. She let her fingers trail through the cool spray, feeling the echo of her own transformation ripple outward. Each droplet sparkled, a reminder that from ashes rise possibilities. She thought back to the girl who once scribbled in invisible ink, hidden in dusty attics and anonymous forums. That girl had feared judgment, yet her courage had ignited change in classrooms, conference halls, and broadcast waves. The phoenix within her had burned through doubt, only to emerge brighter. Students gathered around, clutching copies of Foundations of Thought, now proudly bearing her name. They recited passages she once whispered in solitude. Their voices wove into the evening breeze, carrying hope to corners she'd never imagined. Elena smiled. Her work had become more than equations. It was a living ember in countless hearts. Dr. Rowe approached, offering 2 cups of tea, the same peppermint blend her mentor once brewed. He handed her one and raised his cup in salute. "To the Phoenix," he said softly. Elena clinked hers against his, the china's ring echoing like applause. They watched as the fountain's lights flickered on, painting arcing sprays in fiery reds and golds. Elena felt the heat of past struggles cool into steady warmth. The echo of the phoenix lingered in every pulse of light and water, an emblem of rebirth and relentless hope. A freshman jogged past, waving a leaflet for the upcoming Foundations of Thought workshop. Elena's heart fluttered. His excitement mirrored her own first spark. She realized then that her journey was never solely about her. It was about the phoenix in everyone who dared to rise from invisibility. And that's when Elena understood. The true echo of the phoenix isn't just one life reborn, but a symphony of souls blazing into being, each rising brighter than before. Drop a fire if you believe every spark can ignite a revolution.